Percy and the Bandstand. It was summertime on the island of Sodor. Sir Topham Hatt was in Great Waterton with Miss Jenny and her machines. They were building a new bandstand. There was to be an open-air concert that evening. It was a special surprise for Lady Hatt. She loved brass bands. All the engines were busy helping to make the day special. Edward was bringing special parcels. Thomas was bringing the banners and bunting. And Percy was bringing the gravel for the pathways. So Skarloey clattered on. Coupled up to the back of the train.
Thank you, Percy.
They pulled
right on
with
top.
all their strength and steam. First, the cars trundled one way. Then, they trundled the other. Skarloey was determined to win. Then, Rheneas heard a creaking and a cranking. He knew the couplings were being pulled too hard. But Skarloey wouldn't give up. I must win, he thought. Then there was trouble. With a crack and a clank, Rheneas' couplings snapped. The puppet show cars bashed and bumped into Skarloey and pushed him down the other side of the hill. Skarloey was scared. He tried to apply his brakes, but they wouldn't work. The puppet show special rattled and roared. Skarloey flew faster down the steep hill.
The band.
Skarloey saw Duncan. He was pushing cars of bunting onto the main track. Look out, Duncan! Stop! But it was too late. Skarloey crashed into Duncan's cars. Bunting flew into the air. It fell all over Skarloey.
I have to pull the main.
Duncan was cross.
I had something to tell you.
Oh, sorry, Duncan, but I must get the puppet show to the children.
I'm busy. I have to pull the main.
There's Percy again. He was sure Percy was going to see him this time, so Thomas hid behind Duck. Percy puffed past. He didn't see Thomas hiding behind Duck's long line of freight cars. Thank you, Duck. Duck looked puzzled. Thomas steamed onto the docks as fast as his pistons would pump. Thomas was late for the brass band. They were waiting on the dockside.
Thank you.
All aboard! Then he saw some mail cars. He knew Percy would soon come to collect them. Hurry up! The band hurried. But the trumpet player had left his trumpet behind, right at the end of the dockside. So Thomas had to wait. Just then, Percy arrived.
I was silly not to have asked for your help.
Hello, Thomas.
Oh, no,
Percy
Thomas,
saw that Thomas
you've
was
lost
collecting
them
the...
all. Now the bridge can't be finished.
Oh, no. This is a disaster. The workmen attached chains to Stanley and Thomas. Slowly, Stanley pulled Thomas back to safety. Thomas was upset. How did I lose the blocks, he huffed to himself. Thomas remembered the bump on the bridge. It had made the last block fall from his flatbed. Maybe the other blocks fell when I hit the other bumps, he thought. Thomas remembered where he had hit the buffers. Then he remembered going over the very bumpy track. Thomas knew what he had to do. Stanley, will you help me, please? Of course, Thomas. If you shunt me back along the track to the yard, I can show you where the other special blocks fell off. That's a very good idea. We must take Rocky with us. He can load the blocks onto your flatbed. Then you can bring them back to finish the bridge. Soon, Stanley was chuffing along. He shunted Thomas behind him. And Murdoch shunted Rocky. Then Thomas found Barbie. reached the bottom of the steep hill. Then Thomas found Harvey. This is where I bashed the buffers with a bump. Hooray! There they are!
Now we're going to give him a medal.
Thomas puffed away to collect the firefighter. He was very excited. He was going to meet a real hero. On the way, Thomas saw lots of children at the bus stop. They were excited too.
We're going to see the firefighter. Bertie, the bus is taking us to the medal ceremony.
Then, up ahead, Thomas saw a water tower through the trees. The water tower was starting to wobble. Thomas saw Duck was right next to it.
Oh no, the water tower is going to fall on Duck. I must rescue him.
Thomas blew his whistle loudly. Quick, Duck, move, now! Duck puffed quickly forward. The water tower crashed to the ground.
I've had to clear snow from lots
I
of
rescued
lines.
you.
No, you didn't.
James
Rocky was
was
putting the
worried.
water tower on my flatbed, and now
I've had
it's
to clear
smashed.
snow from lots
Thomas
of lines.
hadn't seen Rocky.
bashed his
Rocky had been hidden behind the tree.
You're the best biffer I've ever seen.
Oh, that was nothing. See how easily I can shunt heavy Hector. James collected Hector. Stanley watched as James shunted Hector to the back of his train. Snow started to fall. I'm ready to leave. I'll see you both at Great Waterton. It's starting to snow, James. You should check the weather with the yard manager. James didn't want to be told what to do by a freight car, especially in front of Thomas and Stanley. I'll decide what we do. The weather doesn't bother me. So James buffered up to his train and steamed slowly out of the yards. James puffed through the countryside. The snow was getting heavier.
And the twins were floating high above the island of Silver.
More sand. James stopped at a signal. The balloon rose higher and higher and floated away. Duncan was delighted. Duncan chuffed round another bend. Bust my buffers. There on the bridge above him was the balloon. I thought the balloon had floated away. What shall I do now, he thought. Duncan chuffed his biggest puff. The hot smoke from his funnel flew into the balloon. It made the balloon get bigger. This gave Duncan an idea. He huffed and puffed and puffed and huffed. The balloon got bigger and bigger and floated away. Duncan was delighted. He raced on to Mr. Percival's house. Mr. Percival was waiting for him. Where's the hot air balloon, Duncan? It came looser and floated away. Thomas collected a flatbed. Mr. Percival was upset.
Now we can meet Toby.
Flora was pleased. Hooray! She peeped prettily. They set off. Toby, you must go. Hurry now and leave the show, he puffed to himself. Flora and Thomas waited at the junction to Toby's shed. It looked empty. Come on, Flora! Flora pumped her pistons perkily. Suddenly, Thomas saw steam coming from Toby's shed. Cinders and ashes, he thought. Toby's still here. Toby mustn't see Flora.
He did old Diesel's
Flora, I've just remembered. We must go to the quarry first. Flora was surprised.
If you say so, Thomas.
And they puffed away.
He did old Diesel's
At the shunting yard, Thomas was coupled up to the stone cars.
Diesel moved in.
Now we can
The
meet...
camera flashed. Thomas didn't know that Diesel had rolled right in front of him. And neither did Diesel. Later that day, Thomas puffed into Maron Station to pick up the new billboard. He was very excited. But when Thomas saw it, he was very disappointed. Diesel's right in front of me, Thomas thought sadly. No one can see me at all. Thomas puffed towards Knapford. Diesel moved in front of me on purpose, huffed Thomas to himself. Thomas felt cross. He wasn't looking where he was going. Then there was trouble. There was a cow on the line. Thomas turned quickly into a siding just in time. He hit the buffers and the billboard flew into the lake.
Thomas was surprised.
Thomas went to tell the photographer what had happened.
Scarloey and Rheneas giggled.
Don't worry,
Thomas
I'll
was
take another
surprised.
photograph. Tell all the
Disney
engines to meet me at
fireboxes.
Tidmouth Sheds.
One has
Thomas
ever
was
found
about
him.
to...
An idea flew into Thomas's funnel. Maybe I can find him and bring him to Mr. Percival's party. That would be the most special present of all.
I can help you. I know the hills better than anyone.
No, thank you. I'm sure I can find him on my own. Thomas was uncoupled from his flatbed. Please don't leave for the party without me. And he chuffed quickly away. Thomas raced through the hills. The man in the hills, the man in the hills. I know I'll find him. I'm sure that I will, he chuffed to himself. Thomas puffed up to a hillside hall. There was a man, dressed all in white. It's the man in the hills, he thought excitedly to himself. Please, come with me to see Mr. Percival. Yes, Thomas. Right away.
At the school, children cheered and waved. Edward wasn't looking at the red signal. Flatten my fender! Edward applied his brakes, but too late. The shiny brass edge of the water wheel cut even deeper through the ropes. Edward knew now that his long journey had made him late. Then he had an idea. I will chuff up Gordon's Hill, Edward thought. It's the fastest way to Great Waterton. And, he huffed to himself, the other engines on the hill will all see my special. Set off. Edward chuffed and huffed up Gordon's Hill. Oliver and Arthur passed him coming down. They both thought his special was magnificent. But the water and together they set off. Edward huffed and puffed up the hill. At last, he reached towards a level crossing. But the edges of the gate, coconuts rolled everywhere. The level crossing was blocked, but Rosie didn't know. She puffed happily on. Then another coupling snapped. Rosie passed Stepney in a siding. Stepney was waiting to puff onto the main line. The points changed. Stepney blew his whistle loudly. He's whistling at my funfair special, thought Rosie proudly. But Stepney was whistling because the truck of sugar was now rolling towards him. Stepney was covered in pink sugar from funnel to footplate. But Rosie didn't know. She puffed proudly on. Rosie steamed up Gordon's Hill. Another coupling snapped. She heard an engine's whistle. They're whistling at my funfair special too, Rosie thought happily. But it was Emily with the rest of the funfair trucks. Rosie's flatbed was now rolling back towards Emily. It bashed into Emily. You're the only engine to arrive on time. You are excellent, Emily. That made Emily very proud. Excellent, Emily, she thought. I like that. The Fat Controller had a very important job for Emily. Jeremy cannot land at the airport, and my mother is on board. The storm has blown some metal tanks across the runway. You must collect Trevor from Farmer McCall's. Take him to the airport so that he can clear the runway. Then Jeremy can land. Oh, yes, sir. Excellent, Emily can do it. Then Murdoch puffed alongside Emily. I'm going to Farmer McCall's too. Lots of lines had flooded. Take the Wellsworth track. I'm not going on that track. It's much quicker to go through the forest. I'm excellent, Emily. I can make it through. So Emily puffed through the forest. But soon she was up to her axles in water. Nothing will stop me. Excellent Emily will find a way through. So she puffed on through the water. It was hard work. At last, Emily chuffed out of the flood. But now she was late. Thomas was waiting at the junction. There's a fallen tree. It's blocking the tracks. Harvey's coming to clear it.
All right, Freddie.
I'm excellent, Emily.
And Rusty raced
I
quickly
don't
away.
need Harvey to clear the tracks for me. And
Freddie,
she puffed
The party was
proudly
now at the
away.
wharf. Rusty was surprised. I'll take you, Tree. Will you tell the other engine?
Emily
All
chuffed
right,
up
Freddie.
to the fallen tree.
And Rusty raced quickly about the
I'll
country.
easily
There'll be
push this out of
decorations,
my way.
presents, and a big tree covered in lights. Freddie was excited. Colin wasn't. I've never been to a party. Colin was fixed in one place. He couldn't move from the siding. We never have parties at the wharf. Then Freddie had an idea. Maybe this year they could have the party at the wharf. It would be a surprise party for Colin, he thought cheerily. Freddie had to find Mr. Percival. He wanted to ask him if they could have the party at the wharf. I have to go and collect another flatbed. And Freddie raced away. Freddie saw Mr. Percival cycling away. Then he saw Peter Sam. Peter Sam was pulling flatbeds full of presents and coloured lights. They must be for the party, Freddie huffed to himself. I have to stop Peter Sam taking them to Mr. Percival's house. So Freddie didn't chuff after Mr. Percival. He raced after Peter Sam instead. Peter Sam, stop, stop! The party is now at the wharf. Peter Sam was surprised. It will be a surprise party for Colin. I'll take your flatbeds. Will you tell the other engines? All right, Freddie. And Peter Sam raced away. Freddie shunted the flatbeds to Colin. Leave these flatbeds until I come back. Colin was puzzled, but he still had lots to do, so he carried on working. Now I must find Mr. Percival, Freddie thought, and he raced away. Toby puffed sadly to a junction. Thomas was on his way back to Tidmouth. Hello, Toby. The Fat Controller's waiting for you at Great Waterton. Bust my buffers. He had spent too much time looking for something special. Now he was late, so Toby steamed quickly away. Toby huffed to the halt. The workmen boarded Henrietta, and they puffed quickly away. Toby knew he had to hurry to get to Great Waterton. Then Toby saw something bright shining beside the track. Maybe this is special. Now the Fat Controller won't be cross with me, Toby thought. But it wasn't something special. It was an old piece of metal stuck in the bushes. Then there was trouble. Toby had puffed so far.
Then Diesel
looking for
rolled
something
in.
special, he
I
had run
won.
out of coal.
Thomas forgot about Mavis. Thomas was enjoying being the winner.
Now we both won a race. We must have one more.
Thomas was no longer thinking about his job. All right, let's race to the engine sheds. Whoever wins this race is the fastest. Diesel revved his engine. Thomas pumped his piston. And the two engines raced quickly away, backwards. Thomas steamed into the lead. Steamers are fast, steamers are first, he huffed to himself. Thomas had to win this race, but Diesel battled alongside him. Then there was trouble. Harry and Bert were enjoying a rest at the engine sheds, but Thomas and Diesel couldn't see them. They raced backwards towards Harry and Bert. With a crash and a bang, Thomas and Diesel smashed Harry and Bert right through the back of the engine sheds.
flagstones and timber flew everywhere.
Bust my buffers.
Gordon puffed round the
Uh-oh.
Then Henry arrived. Gordon puffed onto the lower track. He could see the logs had fallen across Stanley's line. Then he saw Stanley chuffing around the bend. Gordon blew his whistle long and loud.
Stop, Stanley! Stop!
Stanley applied his brakes and screeched to a halt just in front of the logs. Soon Rocky arrived. He cleared the logs in no time.
I'm sorry, Stanley. This was all my fault. I wanted to take a shortcut. I wanted to pick up the very important passengers. But now, I want you to collect them.
Stanley was delighted. Later, the very important passengers were all on board Stanley's passenger cars. Stanley felt very proud. Gordon puffed in to collect the workmen.
I won't be taking any shortcuts this time.
Stanley laughed, and Gordon smiled at his new friend.